Good evening, everybody. Man, we're so happy, so happy to be here. If you guys been following along on social media, look, it's episode 200. As always, we're joined by Xavier Wyatt, got Raymond Lyons, Cardell Dudley Jr., Wilson Tarpe Jr. And look, man, just again, welcome to the Focus TV. We got a very special episode planned for you all. We've been so grateful and will continue to be grateful for your continued support. And we're celebrating this milestone with two great guests tonight from the basketball world. The first being Mike Jones, the DeMatha Catholic basketball head coach. The second being Van Johnson Jr., Baseline Hoop Sports founder and Nike consultant. We're going to start the first half of this special episode with Coach Jones, though. So first off, I want to thank you again for joining us to celebrate our 200th episode. Coach Jones, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. Appreciate the opportunity to come on. I know, it's like 200 wins. I know what a milestone that can be. So congratulations.
We appreciate it. We got a long way to go to catch up to you. So hopefully we'll be able to gain a little bit of ground. But like I said, we got a lot of questions for you this evening. Just want to have a good, productive conversation. I go to kick it off with a question. I want to start kind of early on. You were in college during a time there were some heavy hitters in the NCAA tournament. You made 2 trips to the big dance in your collegiate career. Can you share just a couple of moments from those runs that stood out the most to you?
Well, I believe that I at a day and time when all the transferring and things like that go on in today's game. The 80s and the 90s and even maybe into the early 2000s was way different than it is now. But what I can remember from my time, played 4 years at Old Dominion. All 4 years we went to the postseason. My freshman year and my senior year, we went to the NCAA tournament. I remember my freshman year, I wasn't playing that much. I got a couple minutes at the end of the game. We played Kentucky. That was the year Kentucky got beat by Duke on the Hail Mary pass to Christian Laettner. We played Kentucky that year in the first round. We were actually winning going into maybe the last 4 minutes of the game. Then the Kentucky press just wore us down, and we wound up losing by almost 20. But a great freshman year for me, and it left a taste in my mouth that I wanted to get back there. So as my playing time increased, I became more of an impact on whether or not we made it to the tournament. In my senior year, we were able to make it back. We actually won our final game in triple overtime against Villanova, and then we lost in the second round in the game. I think if we hadn't gone to triple overtime, we would have had a much better chance to win. But a Tubby Smith coach told me. Very fond memories from that, though.
All right. Octavia, I'll let you jump in and ask a question. And Ray, go ahead and get in there after Octavia.
Perfect. I always like to get straight into it. One thing we talk about a lot on the show is the lack of Black head coaches there is in the league. So I personally want to know, how do you feel about the lack of diversity in Black head coaches, the positions that they're able to get to in the NBA?
I think a lot of it has to deal with just I think we as coaches need to use the platform we have and truly support one another. And, this might not be the most popular opinion, but a lot of times with African-American coaches, we undercut each other. It's such a competition. We're so competitive that, a lot of times where, white coaches, they're very supportive and they're just as competitive, but they're very supportive of one another and they look out for each other. And I just think that there's just a system in place where we fight with each other. Like, there's a job opening and there's, 4 or 5 African-American candidates going after it. We almost cancel each other out. It's almost like a vote. And we're all going after the same job. So we split the vote that would have gone to us. Whereas that doesn't happen a lot of times with white coaches. I don't know if that's, as plainly stated as that, but I mean, that's what it comes down to. I had a conversation with John Lucas 2 summers ago when things were open, and John Lucas was getting on myself and a couple of other high school coaches just about, why we as high school coaches don't support more black college coaches. And I mean, it's a similar thing. So I wish there was an easy answer to that question, because there's definitely a lot of talented guys out there, and I know, these days the whole David Vanderpool situation with Minnesota Timberwolves and him getting passed over, the assistant from Toronto, that just left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth, but especially guys from this area that know Gus, know Dave, and know how much he's worked to be an NBA head coach and how qualified he is to be one as well. So,
Ray.
Hey, what's up, Coach? How you doing, man?
doing all right. How are you?
I'm good. Man, something I kind of laughed at myself about oftentimes, when you're brought up, I think it's your career and your success at DeMatha as a coach is it's severely downplayed. And I hear a lot of people just attribute it to it being DeMatha, but it's 20 years now, and the success hasn't fallen off a bit. So I just kind of want you to talk about and just kind of explain to people your journey through coaching. Like it's not like, Coach Wooten retired and they just handed you the keys. You kind of went through that grind of, coaching freshmen, coaching JV, and being assistant to Coach Wooten, and then ultimately got your shot to lead the program. Just kind of lay out, what you learned through that process, and how you're able to maintain the success, of maybe the biggest shoes in high school basketball history.
Well, let me start out by saying this. Anybody that thinks that the success at DeMatha is just because it's DeMatha, I mean, you're tripping. Like there's no way. No way. And to watch the grind that we have to go through from season to season, year to year, like anybody that thinks that, you're just not paying attention. In an area like this with so many great players, all of them can't go to the same school. So every school, especially in our league, every school winds up with really great players. There's great coaches, and guys that, there's a culture here that, you're going to work hard. So even the guys that come in that you haven't even heard of yet, they grind for 2, 3, 4 years. And next thing you know, they're one of the best players in the league. So it is definitely not something that's easy to do. And then, I mean, honestly, I will say, I don't know what it's like to coach another school that doesn't have the expectation level that DeMatha has. So obviously I'm speaking from my standpoint, but I cannot imagine that there's another school out there that has I won't even say the bullseye, but just the expectation to be successful like we have, and to coach in that environment is tough. And to play, for the kids to play in that environment is tough. But I think that's one of the benefits of going through 4 years at DeMatha as a player, or, if you're on our staff. Like, nothing's ever taken for granted, and you got to grind every single day, every single month, every single season. And I think that makes me be the coach that I am, and makes our players be the players that they are.
And just want to piggyback on that for a second in regards to, the players coming into that program and those lofty expectations. And given your playing background, you've been through every level of it. How do you prepare them for that? Because, like you said, I don't think that's a normal high school experience. You're everybody's championship game. So, what are some of the things you and your coaching staff talk to them about, just to kind of get them ready to face that every day?
Yeah, I mean, it is a culture, and I mean, I will be the first to acknowledge the culture at DeMatha. The foundation for it was established by Coach Wooten, Coach Morgan Wooten. Without him, being able to achieve the level of success that he was and is probably the best high school basketball coach. I don't think it's a question, but one of the best coaches of any level of any sport that there's ever been. And was able to do over the course of so many decades, with the changes in just society, from segregated, times to having, the first black player to play at DeMatha to, the civil rights movement. I mean, he was able to coach through all of that and be successful. So, there's definitely a foundation at DeMatha that, I acknowledge all the time, and I have my players acknowledge all the time that, hey, a lot of the stuff that we get, a lot of notoriety that we get is not because of what we've done. It's because of what people did before any of us got here, including myself. So, we acknowledge that. And the fact that I think that we embrace that so well, we know that we're living up to something, and it always gives us something to strive for. So whether it's not, we can start a season number one, like a lot of teams would be satisfied with that. You can win one championship. A lot of teams would be satisfied with that. We're not, because we know, we won the championship, last year in 2020. And I literally, before I left the gym, I had alumni asking me how good we were going to be this year. So, that's just kind of what you deal with, and it comes with it. But that's why I think that our identity is what it is, and that's why we are who we are.
All right, go ahead, Cardio.
Coach, I want to fast forward it to now. Obviously we've been dealing with COVID. I give the young players a lot of credit on the high school and college level because this is something that's never been dealt with before as far as athletics trying to push through this, and moving on to high school and college, the transition is tough enough. But from your perspective as a coach, how tough has it been to keep the fellas prepared? Keep them in the gym with regulations saying you can't be in the gym but so many hours. How tough is it to prepare them, especially your seniors who's trying to gear up not only to play this year but get ready for college? And how does that affect recruiting?
It's been incredibly tough. So, Carter, first of all, that's a great question, and I hope I don't want to be long-winded here, but there's so many different layers to that. So, first and foremost, the thing that we tried to emphasize to our kids this season was that we wanted to just be thankful for any opportunity to get on the floor, because there was such a long period of time there where it did not look like we were going to be able to have a season. We didn't look like we were going to be able to play, being seen and things like that. Last season, our season got cut short. We didn't get to play our last two tournaments, and, that was kind of the taste left in our mouth. So, if you're, what we went into this season is just like, hey, let's just do everything we can to stay safe, to have the protocols, to follow them so that we can get on the floor. And every day that we're able to do that, we emphasize to our kids to be thankful for the opportunity to get on the floor, and to just really appreciate that, because around the country, there were a lot of teams at that time when we got started that were not allowed to play. So, I could not be more thankful for our kids and their families, because it took a true effort from everybody to stay healthy. We had a game get canceled because one of the teams we were going to play had a COVID outbreak. So, fortunately enough, they let us know ahead of time. We didn't play the game, and we immediately got an opportunity to replace that game with a national game in Cleveland. And we had to get permission to go, number one. And we had to get, because of the protocols that we were following, we couldn't fly. We had to drive. We could not drive on a bus because of the uncirculated, and we could not stay overnight. So basically that meant we had to get parents that would agree to drive their son up to play. They weren't even guaranteed they'd be able to go in the gym to watch the game. So it might be you going up, dropping your kid off, and then you sitting in the parking lot for an hour and 30 minutes while we play, and then driving back. That's a pretty big ask, but
wow,
pretty much our family unit said, hey, let's do it. It's a chance for our kids to play. It's a chance for our kids to get more exposure. And in a season like this, that was so valuable to our guys. So, we shouldn't just look at this like the players did, a great job, but the families did a great job. So, and then to touch on just the whole recruitment aspect, like, I don't think people really understand. I'm not an NCAA official, so I hope no one takes what I'm about to say as like fact or law. But I'm on a couple of committees that I hear what's happening. So everyone out here is worried about the class of 2021, this year's seniors, which makes sense. You know, this is the class that, first of all, you didn't get to complete your junior year. You've had, at best, an abbreviated senior year. In college, all the kids that are playing now don't lose a year of eligibility. And then they also passed the rule for you to be able to transfer without penalty so guys can play right away. Like, that greatly impacts the class of 2021. And everybody acknowledges that. Coaches are working extra hard to try to get their kids seen and things like that. But what people don't realize, and this is the part that I think is just going over people's heads. So the, I guess, proposed solution to that is next year, if you have 3 seniors at your university, Old Dominion University, let's say they have 4 seniors on the team, their scholarship allotment for next year will increase by 4 if those 4 seniors decide they want to stay and play another year. They can only be used, those 4 scholarships can only be used for those players, though. So if a player leaves, you don't get an extra scholarship you can go to give to somebody. So that's, you know, on the surface, that's a good solution because that'll help the seniors this year be able to go into school. But what people don't realize is the impact that all of this stuff is going to have in the class of 2022, because there is no proposal for that same thing to last. So that's a 1-year deal. So think about it. If everybody in college were to stay, you get those extra scholarships, and then those same 4 seniors get another year and then they leave. That number is going to go from, if scholarships are 13, increased by 4 to 17, that number is going to go back to 13. But the people that normally will be graduating aren't graduating anymore, and there is no buffer for those guys. So there's going to be much less scholarships for the class of 2022 than there has ever been for a class before, if that winds up being the way it goes. And that's, in all indication, is that's exactly the way it's going to go. So I feel for the current senior class, but I'm terrified for the current junior class.
That's crazy.
Nah, that's
Sorry for
oh no. It is encouraged. It is fine. I know you touched on this a little bit already, just about the pressures of taking over at a program like DeMatha. Has that pressure, do you feel like it's subsided at all since being in your tenure? I know you've accomplished a lot.
Not at all. So, first of all, I don't like the term pressure because I don't look at it like that. There's a standard. And, you know, it's not like I didn't know what I was signing up for. So, but yeah, like, nah, that doesn't go anywhere. And honestly, I'm not sure. Like, I feel good that I'm able to, every single season, the first day of practice, I feel like we have a team that should, not could, but should win a championship. Every single season. I have not had a season where I have not felt that way. And I hope to never have a season where I feel that way. And as long as I feel like that, like, hey, you know, I think it's my job to get our team to that point. And that's the same way Coach Wood looked at it as well. So I'm honored to have that responsibility. But, you know, some years we do, some years we don't. You know, I laugh because, you know, people talk all the time about, you know, the quote unquote drought that we had, you know, when we won a championship in 2011 and we didn't win another one until 2018. And yeah, that was a long time for DeMatha standards, but how many other schools have gone that long and longer without winning one? And there's never any talk of it being a drought at those schools. So again, I embrace that. Our team embraces that, and you know, again, that's why we are DeMatha.
Right here,
Hey, Coach, I wanted to ask, you know, during your playing days between then and now, like the kind of the landscape of basketball in this area has changed. You know, like when you know, when you were playing, and even through my years, we had the city title game, and that was like just a clash of, you know, the best from the private school and the best from the NAI, and they just kind of meet up. Like how do you feel when you look at it right now? There's like I'm going to be perfectly honest. It's confusing to me how many different postseason tournaments there are and all this other stuff. Like just how do you feel about where basketball is on a high school level in this area? Not talent wise, but just in terms of, losing that luster of like that city title game clash, that provided some classic moments, like you guys playing the Dunbar team with Johnny Rhodes and Scoop Marshall and Romeo Roach. Like I just feel like we don't get those type of matchups anymore. So just what's your feeling on that?
It's different. It's definitely different. Honestly, I think because we're not talking about talent, we're just talking about the game in and of itself. It just all depends on what you prioritize. Prioritize development. Do you prioritize exposure? Do you prioritize the experience? And the city title was an experience. The city title was something where it was a thing that everybody looked forward to. I know when we played Dunbar, we had 12,000 people at Coalfield House, in there, and that was when we played Ballou back in 2010 for the city title. We were number 1 and number 2 in the area, and we got I think 8,500 people in there for that game. Like it was something that everyone looked forward to, and not having something like that, definitely. I mean, I wish they did, but you get politics involved in it, and you get politicians that decide, well, the DC city title should be won by a DC team, so that takes the WCAC out of it in terms of our champion plan. But we still got 3 WCAC teams within the district that have a chance. But they do their own state tournament now, which I definitely understand. You don't have to go through the gauntlet, so to speak, anymore. Gonzaga has won our championship. They've represented our league in that game before, but it's not a guarantee you're going to get the best team from our league anymore. And honestly, I think that's bad. But again, it depends on what your motivation is. I know the DC, council and Clark Ray and all of those guys, they get together and they feel like that's the best for their constituency. So, I mean, who am I to argue with that?
I like being frank. Oh, go ahead, Carter.
No, I was going to ask you, Coach, and in relation to kind of my last question, what makes a DeMatha player? What do you look at to determine if a player coming in is a fit for DeMatha?
You got to be a worker. The best players I've ever coached, the guys that, people still are able to watch to this day were the hardest workers. All of our guys that are in the NBA, like I will put them on the list as hardest workers I've ever coached. And like, that's got to be something. And you got to be self-motivated to do that. Now, one of the great players that I've ever coached have I had to beg to get into the gym to get up shots or to work out or lift weights or whatever. These are guys that, they want to do it. They're motivated to do it. So, I look for that. I look for versatility. The game is changing. You have to be able to play multiple positions. You got to be able to guard multiple positions. So, these are all things that I'm looking for when I go see. And then, I mean, we don't always recruit kids that, you will walk in the gym and be like, oh my gosh, that's the best player. Like, we look for a lot of the intangibles too. And one of them is being coachable. Like, we need kids that are going to listen and want to be coached by us, because I take pride in my job. And, I tell our kids all the time, I understand I'm not the easiest to play for sometimes. But I do feel like I help our kids reach as close as they possibly can to their potential. I put them in a college environment so that when they get to college, it's not a culture shock, that they're able to get there. And, one of the best moments I get every fall is when a college coach reaches out to me to tell me how well prepared our young men are when they get there. And, that's something like, you look at, what Hunter is doing now. And, I got that call from Jawan, from Coach Howard, sometime in September, October, telling me how well prepared Hunter was. And again, still has a ton of room to get better, but he was ready for the college game when he got to campus. You know, Justin Moore, same way. You know, Earl Timberlake, same way. Jameer Young, same way. Like, our guys are ready to go when they get there.
And let's take it back a bit to '87. You know, obviously DeMatha was already DeMatha, but you know, talk about the factors that led up to you becoming a Stag, you know, over other schools in the area, and also talk about your progression through the years when you were playing in high school, because you know a lot of kids now when they come in as a freshman, they expect to be in the starting role, to get the shots, to be the main right away, and that's just not realistic.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another. I appreciate the opportunity to say this because people really don't get it. So, first of all, you know, totally different culture. Like, my dad, actually, I told my dad I wanted to go to DeMatha. You know, I had watched, you know, Adrian Branch was not related to me, but, you know, a family member. I'd watched him grow up, you know, watched him, you know, at the University of Maryland, used to go to the games with him and Len Bias. Like, I looked up to those guys. So I wanted to be like Adrian Branch. Danny Ferry was a great player when I got old enough to really pay attention to what was going on at DeMatha. So I was able to see him. John Gwynn and Steve Hood were really good in my 6th and 7th and 8th grade years. So I remember telling my dad I wanted to go to DeMatha. So he took me to DeMatha. I met Coach Wooten. It was at practice. I talked to Coach McGregor, the football coach, and I sat in on a practice and watched him practice, and I was sold. So, you know, Coach Wooten actually had an assistant of his come see me play with Kettering Largo Boys and Girls Club. And, you know, my dad told me, hey, one of the DeMatha coaches is coming to watch you play tonight. I played great. Like, I had a career high, scored more points than I had ever scored in a game before. And, you know, so I'm thinking, like, yeah, like, I did it. Like, I'm going to DeMatha. And I get in the car with my dad, and I'm waiting for him to tell me, like, what was the feedback. And so my dad's not saying anything. So I eventually get to the point where I'm just like, so you going to tell me what he said? And he said, you know, Coach told me that if you wanted to come to DeMatha, they can promise you one thing, and that's a great education. And I was like, that's it? Like, he didn't see me score. Like, and he was just like, I mean, yeah, like, he honestly, like, the way I took what my dad was telling me was the coach wasn't impressed. So, and I saw why when I got to DeMatha. You know, I tried out for the freshman team. I barely made it. Like, and when I say barely made it, I barely made it. The day I got given a practice jersey, like, I asked the coach if I was supposed to give it back after practice. Like, I literally did not know I had made the team. So, like, one of the best I've ever had. Like, back then, we didn't practice at DeMatha. We had to get on a bus and travel to Glen Ridge Elementary School. Mike Hibbs, who went on to be the Bullets coach and the Good Counsel coach for a little bit. You know, it was his first year coaching, but he comes into the locker room as I'm changing and throws a jersey to me. And I'm looking at him like, so, you know, like, do I wash it? Do I give it back to you? And he was just like, what are you talking about? And I'm just like, well, and he's like, no, man, you made the team. But I was literally the 16th man on a 16-man team. Fortunately enough for me, and unfortunate for the guys playing in front of me, I was a third-string postman, basically. One of them sprained his ankle pretty bad. He was a football player, so it wasn't a big deal to him. And then another one didn't do what he was supposed to do academically. So I wound up starting for the freshman team by January of my freshman year, and I never looked back. So I started on JV. I thought I should have played varsity as a sophomore, but I was a lead scorer on the JV team, and then I started as a junior on varsity, and I started as a senior on varsity. But when I got there, I realized I didn't know how to play, and I needed to learn how to play basketball, and I got taught how to play.
Man. We're gonna
crazy,
take
man.
our first two quick breaks this evening. Watching the Focus TV, we have so much more to go with Coach Jones. Man, we're gonna be back in like 10 to 12 seconds, maybe not even. Continue this conversation. There's so much more to get to. Welcome back to the Focus TV. You guys already know I'm not good at math. I don't know how long that was. I want to get back to this conversation. Again, DeMatha head coach Mike Jones is with us to celebrate the first half of our 200th episode. Octavia, you got a question you want to jump in with?
Yeah. So we talked about just now about, how you started out, and it's crazy. I actually had a very similar story from middle school to high school, and how I barely made a team as well. So I definitely get that. But what would you say is the biggest difference from the players back in your day, back in early, like when you first started out? Because I know us being around the same age and being in the high school era between 2000, 2003, 2004, 2005, we kind of have a different look of how players are nowadays as opposed to how we were back then. So what would you say is like the biggest difference between players that you coached early on in your career as opposed to now?
It's definitely a big difference in the mentality. One of them is like you look back then and you had a position. Like I am a point guard, I am a center, I am a small forward, and now you're a post. I mean, you're a guard or a perimeter player, or you're a big. Like that's it. Like so, positions aren't really that important or not emphasized anymore. Whereas back then they were. I can go watch a kid play and ask him what position he plays, and sometimes they can't even tell me. They can just tell me what they do. They don't. Which I kind of like, because again, if the game were the way it was, I need an answer. But with the game the way it's played now, like that's a great answer. So, Jaren Grant teases me all the time. He played, technically, he was our power forward. He started at the power forward for us. But Jaren Grant handled the ball for us. He brought the ball up the court. I wanted him being the trailer when Quinn Cook was the point guard pushing it up and Jaren Grant being the trailer. And I remember Jaren not necessarily wanting to be the four-man for us for a while, but then he saw what he was able to do and all the plays he was able to make from that position, even though he teases me about it now. But, we played a 6'4" kid at the power forward for us because, again, that was when the game first really started to go that way. And then the other part of the mentality that is just totally different is, I mean, and no offense, but like people don't fight anymore. Like something goes wrong, they look, all right, am I going next? And that's the one thing that I wish I could change. Like for us to really instill in our kids to fight through any adversity they have, to be resilient, to be guys that don't point the finger, or young ladies that don't point the finger. If something's not going right, figure out how you can fix it first and foremost, and to go from there. I just wish the mentality was different than it is.
I want to jump in there, Coach, real quick with a question. I know you mentioned a fun word that we talk about a lot, which is adversity. But again, success gets a lot of the headlines these days, all the time. If you could talk just about some of the adversity you had to deal with as a coach.
Yeah. I mean, that's tough. So, I mean, let's be honest. Like, my first year, Coach Wooten retires literally 2 days before the first day of practice. We go into it. We think, hey, this, we've been around Coach long enough. Like we've done, I've learned, I know what I'm doing. We start out 8-0. Like we're beating teams. We go to a national tournament in North Carolina. We win our first 2 games. Like we're good. And then we lose 5 straight. Like that never happened. But, we get off the schneid, but then we lose a few more straight. And then next thing you know, we're in the midst of a 15-17 season in my first year when I'm not even the official head coach. I'm just the interim coach. So, I mean, you talk about adversity, like, and I'm so thankful for that group that year because, like, our seniors that year, they thought they were going to play for Coach Wooten. They thought they were going to graduate being on Coach Wooten's team, not on Mike Jones's team. And that could have gone so many different ways. And, I mean, if I'm honest, not every kid on that team stuck with us. Like I remember, we're getting ready to go to Cumberland, and I had a parent tell me his kid was not going to go with us, and I was confused. So I asked to meet with him. He actually came to my house, and he sits at my dining room table and tells me, "Well, you guys didn't earn the right to go." And the rule in Cumberland is you get to go if you're the defending champion. And I'm just like, well, I don't understand what that means. Like, we're the defending champion. We've known all year we were going to go. And he was just like, yeah, but like, I don't feel like this team deserved the right to go. So my kid's not going. And he was one of our main players. And I mean, what do you do? So I'm just like, all right, well, I mean, okay. And, so that was something we had to work through. And obviously our team had to work through that too, because that was a chink in the armor, so to speak. Like, there's a kid who's basically bucking to tradition, and I won't say quitting on the team because that I'm not trying to put the kid down or the decision they made, but it made things a little tougher for us. And then in a year that we were actually ranked number 4 in the country at the time, we go up to Hoop Hall and we play Bob Hurley St. Anthony's team, and we're good. Like, we're really good. And we lose literally by 50 points. And, I mean, I'll never forget that. Like, that was one of the toughest things I've ever had to deal with as a coach. Because, first of all, we were talented enough. You talk about laying an egg. We just laid an egg. Like, we did not come to play. They were so hyped to play against us. And no offense to Bob Hurley, but I've tried to get them back on our schedule like so many times before they closed, and I'll just say it never worked out. Wink, wink. Yes, we've dealt with plenty of adversity, and those are just 2, I guess, easy ones to pick. But there's adversity within every season. Justin Moore tearing his ACL his sophomore year. On a team that had the potential to be really, really, really good. That was some adversity we had to deal with. It's hiccups and speed bumps along the way all the time.
Coach, real quick, like you said, y'all lost by 50 to Bob Hurley's team, St. Anthony's. I just want to know, what was the practice like after those type of games? Because I know for me, practices usually ended up life-threatening. So I just want to know how it was for y'all after that type of game.
I'm going to be honest with you, Cardell. The only thing that I tried to make sure I did was to not do that. Because we played bad. Like, I can't go and punish a team for playing bad. Like, I didn't. Like, that would not have been very helpful. Like, we still had goals that year. We wanted to win our league. We did. We wanted to win the city championship that year. We did. And had we responded in a different way, who knows what happens. Like, you talk about fragile. Like, we just got and the other thing was that game was on ESPN. It wasn't on ESPN or ESPN2. That was the big network. It was the number 3 team in the country against the number 4 team in the country. It was huge. This was before all of those other, with the Montbirds and all of them playing. It was before that. This was probably one of the highest ranked matchups that you would have had at that point in time. And we lost by 50. So the psychology of coaching became a priority there. That's one. And then 2, I think the biggest thing for us was we had to move on. Like, we played Carroll, I believe, was the next game 2 nights later. And, like, we literally had to move on quickly to get ready for that. And we struggled that game mightily because there was still a hangover. But had I, quote-unquote, punished them before, that I don't think that would have gone very well.
Gotcha.
Hey, Coach, I want to switch gears a little bit. Talk about USA basketball. Like that's a huge undertaking. Do you think it makes it kind of easier for you to navigate that situation, seeing as how you deal with such high level talent on a regular basis at DeMatha?
I think somewhat, but USA is a totally different beast. So again, just to kind of let you know what the similarity is. So I take over for Don Showalter. So Don Showalter, the very first year there was the USA basketball team was 2009 for our age group level, junior national team. And from 2009 to 2018, 10 years, Coach Showalter never lost a game. He won every single game, practice game, everything. Won 10 gold medals. Like literally in FIBA basketball, he is known as Mr. Perfect. I was fortunate enough to be his assistant in 2011, 2012, and again in 2016. And when the opportunity came about, when he said he was going to step aside and focus on developing the coaches within the JNT, they had to find a new coach. And I'm very thankful that they chose me. But you talk about pressure. Like, I mean, Coach Wooten actually lost a game. Like, I mean, this guy had never lost. So we go to, the very first practice was different. The first time we go out anywhere is different. And then, so we go to Brazil in summer of 2019, 2 summers ago, and we go to play our first game. So this is the very first game that the junior national team from the USA, Coach Showalter is not the head coach. And we're losing 25-6. Like we are getting our you know what kicked. Like it was bad. And I will say this. The fact that I've gone through what I've gone through at DeMatha allowed me to have the proper perspective within that situation. So I never panicked because my focus was if I panic, they're going to panic. And so we didn't panic. We tied the score by halftime, and we wound up winning that game and all the rest of the games and winning the gold medal. And like I am truly thankful for the DeMatha coaching me because that is the only way. Like literally, like you don't understand. Like we show up anywhere, USA team, we show up anywhere, we're rock stars. People are there, they want our autographs, and they're going to cheer for us because they want to see the dunks and things like that. So these people in Brazil were going crazy during our warm-ups, and they're all, ready to chant for us. But every point ahead and I believe it was Argentina, every point ahead Argentina got in front of us, like the crowd literally started to go crazy cheering for them because it was like, yo, USA is going to lose, like, and we get to be here. So you talk about playing in a hostile, loud, like no one rooting for us anymore. That was the epitome of that, and our kids stuck with it, and we wound up winning the game.
That's tough. Coach, I have a couple fun questions for you. Which player and team has been the toughest for you to game plan for in your coaching career, DMV and during the national part of your schedule?
So the national part of my schedule is easy answer, and I think a couple things attribute to it. So in 2008, we played St. Benedict's, again, up at Hoop Hall. St. Benedict's was the #1 team in the country. They had Samardo Samuels, who was the #1 player in the country. They had Greg Echenike, who was a high school All-American. They were both senior big men, 6'8", 6'9", and then they had a young fellow on the team named Tristan Thompson, who was a sophomore that was kind of the forgotten man. Our biggest player was Kenny Tate that season. And Kenny Tate was, 6'4", 6'5" football player who was a very talented basketball player, but was going to college on a football scholarship. Kenny Tate was on one of his college visits the day we are going up to Hoop Hall, and it was just something that could not be avoided. So he did not get there until he flew in the morning of the game. And like he was tired, and he was the only player that physically could fight with those guys, even being 5 shorter. So that game, it was coached by Danny Hurley, Bob Hurley's son. So that was definitely the toughest opponent to game plan for, without a doubt, nationally. And then individual, like there's way too many, like sleepless nights, or I'll call them very thoughtful nights. You can go Chris Light, you can go Chris Wright. People realize how good Dave Neal was at O'Connell in high school. Like these guys, just what do you do? Like even you look at us playing a team last year, like Montverde down at Montverde. Like I thought we had a game plan that was going to win. There's been plenty of times we were getting ready to play Gonzaga or St. John's that, I think we're going to win, but I'm not sure how we're going to stop this guy. And, obviously their talent and their performances over the years speak volumes to, I was right to believe that or think that way. We've been able to go against some really, really, really good players.
Who was the toughest player you ever faced?
Toughest that I faced or my team has faced?
Yeah, that you faced, that you played against.
Oh, shoot. I played against Felipe Lopez in high school.
Oh.
We beat them. But, he was Jordan. Like, you couldn't breathe on him. And we actually played them in North Carolina, so it wasn't even like the game in New York. And we were just like, hey. And that was my senior year where we went undefeated. But at that point in time, nobody really knew that we were deserving of maybe a little bit more clout than that. So, like, literally every time we breathed on Felipe, he'd get a foul call to the point where he was laughing about it. It was, yeah, that was bad. So, he's one of the most talented players I've ever played against. Shea Seals played for that team that we lost to in the NCAA tournament, Tulsa. Like, in terms of me guarding somebody, like he was somebody that I struggled with. I didn't struggle with too many guys. I was actually a really good defender. I didn't struggle with too many guys, but Shea Seals was one of the guys. But probably the toughest player that I've ever played against, and it was only for a couple minutes, was Jamal Mashburn, my freshman year when we played Kentucky. And I remember, like, we're in the tunnel getting ready to come out and come out for our practice. Kentucky practice before us. And, like, literally, he is sitting in the tunnel with his hood on, and we assume he had headphones on, but, like, the rest of his team are laughing and joking, and he's just in the corner. Like, you could just tell he's getting in a zone. He scared the crap out of our team, and he wasn't doing anything but sitting there. So, but yeah, I would call him, the toughest. And then, I got to play against the GOAT in a preseason game. I was with the Indiana Pacers, and we played against the Bulls. So I got to play against and guard Michael Jordan for 3 possessions. Every time I see MJ, I remind him that he did not score in those 3 possessions. He didn't.
I don't blame you.
He didn't shoot in those possessions either, but that's just a minor detail. He didn't score, and I'd say he goes 0 for 3. That's basically the story I tell.
Thanks for setting that straight about who the GOAT is. I appreciate that. If you had to go to war tomorrow and won a do or die game, what 5 would you pick? Only DeMatha players would you pick all time and that you coached, that you will bring with you?
I like the way you worded that, because people try to give me the name, the best 5 and all of that, and I refuse to do it. But so honestly, if I could have 5 Earl Timberlakes, I'll take 5 Earl Timberlakes. I love Earl. If it was going to be if toughness is ever a question, you got Earl on your team. Like, I tell people all the time, he was like, you go to the playground with a bunch of older kids and you go by yourself, maybe a little shy, you don't really want to mix it up a little bit, but your big brother goes with you. Maybe your chest poked out a little bit more, your head's held up, like you're not scared of anything. That's what it's like having Earl on your team. Like, if Earl's not playing, like, maybe you're not as aggressive. But if Earl's on your side, like, there's nothing that scares you. You're ready to go up against any and everybody. So, but I would say Earl definitely is on that team. Nigel Munson is definitely on that team. Nigel, he just doesn't get the credit he should get as one of the best guards to ever come out of this city. Nigel's something special, something truly special. We won three championships with Nigel kind of running the show for us. But actually, 2 championships. Austin Freeman, again, Jeff Allen. Talk about toughness. And then that 5th guy, there's just so many guys you can pick from. But if you're just talking about sheer toughness, that's hard. I got to give some credit to Hunter, just in terms of I don't know if people really understand the bigs that we've had. Hunter and BJ Anya, specifically, the whippings that they had to take because they were people just were allowed to just club them and beat on them with very little done, and then they could touch anybody or it was a foul. But because Hunter and BJ were so much bigger than everybody else, there was a lot of leeway to the guys trying to defend them. And you look at why Hunter is doing so well now. Hunter always did well against guys that were his size or bigger or better reputation. He doesn't have 6'4" guys guarding him anymore. And the same thing with BJ when he went to NC State. So it probably would come down between those two. We were going to war. BJ would block everything, and then Hunter would just be the 7'1", 7'2", just space eater that was going to be tough to play around anyway.
It was a great question. A heck of an answer. We're going to take our final break before we come back and close. As always, Jamal Hayden with the 9-4-50 breakdown. No show is complete without that. This week, it's of a combo move. Same hand, foot punch dribble, mixed with a quick pickup move shot. Again, it's the same hand, foot punch dribble mixed with a quick pickup move shot. Followed by our second break, and we come back. Go ahead and close this first half of this milestone episode. You're watching the Focus TV.
Today we're going to work on a combination move. We're going to add 2 moves into one. Still minimal dribbles. I'm going to show you how it looks both ways. We're going to put together same foot pound into a quick pickup. We're going to combine those 2. So I'm going to start with my right hand, okay? So before I start facing the rim and really demonstrate, I'm going to show you guys the breakdown. So say if I go right, ball's in my right hand, I go right. So I'm taking 1 stop with my right foot out. That's the same foot, same hand pound, okay? So when I take this pound, I want to be in a lunge position, okay? Now, when I beat this defender going right, and I take this hard pound, and this hard stop, with that defender trying to recover, I take this hard, quick stop, they keep going. So normally I can just go right into my shot. Now we're gonna add the next move, all into one. So, 1 pound, up. So, both ways. 1 pound, up. Now, with the quick pickup, right foot out, then I step my left foot forward aggressively. So, again, 1 foot out, up, left, right. But it's fast and brings it right to my shot pocket. So here again, up, same way, same thing the other way. So, with the shots, today we're going to work on a combination move. We're going to add 2 moves into one. Still minimal dribbles. I'm going to show you how it looks both ways. We're going to put together same foot pound into a quick pickup. You're gonna combine those two. So I'm gonna start with my right hand, okay? So before I start facing the rim and really demonstrate, I'm gonna show you guys the breakdown. So, say if I go right, ball's in my right hand, I go right. So I'm taking one stop with my right foot out. That's the same foot, same hand pound, okay? So, when I take this pound, I wanna be in a lunge position, okay? Now, when I beat this defender going right, and I take this hard pound, this hard stop, with that defender trying to recover, I take this hard, quick stop, they keep going. So normally I can just go right into my shot. Now we're gonna add the next move, all into one. So, 1 pound, up. So, both ways. 1 pound, up. Now, with the quick pickup, right foot out, then I step my left foot forward aggressively. So, again, right foot out, up, left, right. But it's fast and brings it right to my shot pocket. So here again, up, same way, same thing the other way. So, with the shot,
Once again, want to thank Jamal Hayward for knocking out the 9-4-50 breakdown each and every week. Just one more time. Coach Jones, thank you so much for hanging with us tonight for the first half of our 200th episode. We truly enjoyed this in a post-COVID world. We would love to have you in studio with us. And also, folks, just want to take some time, I think I speak for everybody here, just to wish you continued success at DeMatha. And
Absolutely.
to everyone watching, don't forget the Kids with Focus TV every Friday night at 10 p.m. Eastern on DCTV. Follow the Focus on all your social media mediums. And again, this is just the first half of our 200th episode. We got another great guest coming for part 2. But for part 1, you guys have a great evening. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.